Hi guys, welcome to this video where we are going to discuss about the architecture of this incredibly powerful tool called Kubernetes. Now, let me give you just a couple of features that I personally love about Kubernetes. The first one, it's called self-healing. And what Kubernetes does is it monitors all the instances of your application, and let's say one instance goes down, Kubernetes will bring up its replacement and spin up a new instance of your application immediately. That is really cool. Now, second awesome feature, auto scaling. So let's say the traffic to your application spikes up all of a sudden. Kubernetes will scale up the number of instances to a certain limit and distribute the traffic evenly so that your application performance doesn't take a hit. These kind of features makes Kubernetes such an amazing tool for any DevOps engineer. Now, let me give you a quick demo in the terminal about the declarative nature of Kubernetes and how easy it is to create and manage your deployments. So I'm going to switch to my terminal and use this command line tool called kubectl, which we use to interact with the cluster. And let's say I want to deploy my application. All I have to do is give it kubectl create deployment. And you can name the deployment anything you want. Let's say I want to name it same as my application, frontend. And just give it the image Nginx. In this case, I'm giving the image name as Nginx, which is totally random. So what Kubernetes does behind the scene is reach out to Docker Hub, pull this image from Docker Hub, and spin up an instance of our application. If I now inspect the elements, you'll see that I have one instance of my application running. And let's say there's a sudden spike in the traffic, I want to scale it up. With Kubernetes, that's absolutely no problem. All you have to do is kubectl scale replicas equal to 5 and give it the name of the deployment that you want to scale. And boom. If you now inspect the pods, you have 4 new instances that are just coming up. How cool is that? So now let's dive into the architecture. All right, so you have heard me talking about Kubernetes cluster, right? So let us first demystify what the term cluster means. In Kubernetes world, a cluster is nothing but a collection of physical or virtual machines. When they're put together, it's called a cluster. And every machine in a cluster is called a node. And when you deploy your pods, they get deployed on these nodes. Now, depending on the kind of components that we install on these nodes and the kind of functionality that they carry out, they can be classified into master or worker nodes. In a typical cluster, you might have 1 to 3 master nodes, whereas you'll have like lot many worker nodes. And the reason for that is because worker nodes are responsible for hosting your application containers and running your application. So as you can imagine, the resource requirements on the worker node is more. And master node is like the brain behind the cluster. So it watches over the whole cluster, make sure all the nodes are working properly, all the containers are running smoothly, and in general, just ensure everything is working fine, apart from giving the instructions to the worker node to deploy certain pods and things like that. So we are going to discuss in more details and look at the components of each of these nodes. The first and the most basic component that has to be installed on every node, regardless of whether it's a master or worker node, is Container Engine. This little guy here. So as you can imagine, with Kubernetes, containers are everywhere. Even the internal components that we install are sometimes in the form of containers. So without a container engine, it's not possible to run a container. Then the most important component of a worker node is called kubelet. Let me give you a real world analogy to understand kubelet. Kubelets are like the supervisors in a company. So every department has a separate supervisor who reports to, let's say, the upper management. Similarly, kubelet is responsible for watching over its node, making sure all the processes that are running on its node are running smoothly, and making sure that it has enough resources for all the running applications. So what kubelet does is basically, if there are any incidents, it will report it back to the master node, as well as whenever master node needs to know the status of any of these nodes, their availability, their resource requirements, and things like that, it is the job of the kubelet to report it back to the master node. So that's kubelet. The last component of a worker node is called kubeproxy. In the previous demo, when I showed you kubectl create 5 replicas, those 5 pods could be deployed across the different nodes. You have no control over that unless you specifically mention or give some specifics where your application has to be installed. It can go on any node, and one of the requirements of a Kubernetes cluster is that every pod in the cluster should be able to communicate with every other pod in the cluster. And the way we do that is basically with the use of something called a service. So service exposes these pods and enable the communication between each other. Now, whenever a new service is created in the cluster, kubeproxy maintains a record of that service in its memory. And whenever you're trying to communicate with anything outside of the pod, it is the kubeproxy which will enable you to do that. So it will look through all of the services, find the appropriate service that is that enables this kind of communication on this port and things like that, and it will allow that kind of communication. Now let's say I put some network policy in place. I don't want my front-end pods to communicate directly with my database. So these network policies, if you define them, that again is recorded and kept in kubeproxy, and kubeproxy will monitor that these network policies are properly followed and they're not being forfeited. So that is the job of kubeproxy. It is the communication between the pods. Now let's switch our focus to the master node. The first component on the master node we are going to look at is Kube API server. A Kube API server is like this coordinator in the cluster. It manages and orchestrates all the operations in the cluster, such as communicating with the kubectl commands, managing all the internal communication between the different internal components, and managing communications with worker nodes. So when we type that kubectl command, this is where it goes, to Kube API server. Internally, Kube API server first takes this request from kubectl command. It will first authenticate it. Second, it will validate that the request is valid, and then it will decide what to do with that instruction, whether to redirect it to which component. As you can imagine, this is our only point of entry into the cluster. This is the gateway to the entire cluster. And if you think about it from a security standpoint, that's actually a good thing. That means we only need to secure this one gateway. So that's Kube API server. And we will look at it in more detail when we reach the part where we connect the dots between all of these components. The next component we are going to discuss is etcd cluster. So etcd is nothing but a database of the whole cluster. So it is the database that maintains the information about the whole cluster in key value format. So it will have all the records such as the number of nodes in the cluster, number of pods, what kind of applications are running. Everything is recorded in this database. etcd is like a key component of the whole cluster. Imagine if the whole cluster goes down, and if you just had a backup of etcd cluster, you could easily restore the whole cluster. That's how important it is. So as you can imagine, for such an important component, security is a prime concern. So that is why Kube API server is the only component that can talk to etcd cluster. It is the only component that can do any kind of read or write actions on etcd database. So any other component need to get any information, it has to go first through Kube API server. Kube API server will validate the request, and then it will go through etcd cluster. All right, the next component, and this is a collection of processes called controllers, or they are also called controller managers. So these are like set of processes that manage or monitor the different resources in the cluster. So for example, you have like node controller or replication controller. A node controller is responsible for monitoring all the nodes, making sure they're running in a healthy state. And if one node goes down, the node controller will spring into action and take the necessary decision that it needs to take. So that could be something like replace the whole node, bring up a new node, and things like that. Replication controller is the one that is responsible for watching over the pods. So if any pod goes down, replication controller will try to replace that with a new instance of a pod. So in the previous demo, when I gave the instruction like replicas equal to 5, that is replication controller bringing up 4 additional pods in the cluster. So it is the job of a replication controller to make sure that you always have the desired number of pods running in the cluster. Similarly, you have many more controllers for each of the resource, and they are all responsible for this kind of monitoring that particular resource and making sure they're running smoothly. And the next component that we are going to discuss is called scheduler. The main job of a scheduler is to schedule the pods on the most suitable node. When an application is created and the pod is generated, the pod is in the waiting state, and it waits until the scheduler instructs and assigns it the most suitable node, and then it gets hosted on that particular node. So in a scheduler, you have all of these algorithms that help to decide which node is appropriate for which pod. So it will take into consideration things like the resource requirement of the application and take a look at the node availability or the resource availability on the node. It's similar to, like, once again, if I give you a real world analogy, it's like you walking in a restaurant with a group of 5 guys and you meet the host. A job of a host is to make sure that your group is seated on the right table. So a table with 5 chairs, for example. So that's scheduler. Now we know the functions of all of these different components. What we can do now is connect the dots and see how everything works together. So let's start with the example. So when we wrote our command kubectl create deployment, that instruction came into Kube API server. Kube's API server did its thing, authenticated it, validated it, and decided where to redirect that instruction. So first, Kube API server will update the etcd database. It will add like, okay, this new application is getting created and we need to spin up one instance of that. Then it makes the scheduler aware that there is a pod waiting to be scheduled. So there's a pod now hanging in there, like nowhere to go. The scheduler requests the information from Kube API server about the nodes and their availability. Kube API server then reaches out to the kubelets on each worker node and requests for the report. Kubelet gives back all the report, like, okay, we have these many resources available, these many containers are running currently, and things like that. Based on all of these criteria, then scheduler will rank all of the nodes and it will decide, okay, this is the first priority, second priority, third priority. And depending on that, Kube API server will give the instruction to kubelet to host this pod. So once the kubelet accepts that request, it will host the pod and then it will give the instruction to the container engine to actually spin up the container. And this guy is responsible for reaching out to Docker Hub, pulling the image and spinning up the container inside the pod. That's basically how things work. Now let's take another example. So we have another command, kubectl get pods. That command first goes into Kube API server. It again went through the checklist, authenticated, validated, and then it knows that it's just a read request. So it goes directly to etcd cluster, gets the data on all of the running pods and reports it back to the terminal. So I hope you have a better understanding of how the architecture works. And if you liked the video and you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe to this channel.